article written by Mr. N.K. Singh, who is, chairman of the 16th Finance Commission, 15th Finance Commission. Where is the other set of articles? Yeah. Then we have the second one, which is China's complaint against India at WTO, and then naming of cyclones. These three articles are there. So we will just stick to these three articles because these are the most important takeaways. First one is about Bretton Woods institutions. What do you mean by this? What is the meaning of Bretton Woods? It's a name of a place. So World Bank, IMF, the global financial institutions which were formed after the Second World War with an objective to rebuild the economy that was in shambles after the Second World War. That time period's philosophy has been the foundational, seed that established modern day capitalism. Okay? The fundamental assumption of this so-called Washington consensus is economy will drive politics. So the fundamental assumption is that if you have money, you can dictate politics. This is roughly put, this is what they're saying. That is why capitalism eventually became or spiraled down into crony capitalism. One of the bad sides of capitalism is often cited as crony capitalism. What is crony capitalism? Where a bunch of small group of people, an excess of politicians, bureaucrats and businessmen coming together in a setup called quid pro quo, where I will offer you something for advantage and I will get something in return. The problem with this setup is the original intent of democracy, where welfare of people and the well-being of people, rather than welfare, I'll say well-being of people, that is compromised. Okay? Now, coming back to the original Washington consensus, which was talking about how IMF and World Bank were supposed to do their respective roles. What is the role of IMF? How many of you are done with basic economy classes? What is the role of IMF? What crisis? What is the role of World Bank? Long-term developmental finance. So, let's not look at the article. But an economist is writing the article and is saying that there is something wrong with Bretton Woods institutions. What is the logical implication? It just means the original intent with which they are functioning, that purpose is not solved. Is that a logical assumption? Is it a safe assumption? Now, let us ask why. Why is it not working out? You have to look at the design, how they are functioning, right? That might give you an insight into why they aren't functioning, right? What is the logical assumption here? That economy will drive politics. Is that the case now in the present world? It is the other way around. Politics is driving economy. That is why we are witnessing state-led capitalism. Can you give me an example of a state-led capitalism? China. Should India aspire to be a state-led capitalist country? Should we aspire to be a state-led welfare country? No. Neither this nor that. Then what should we do? Mixed. Correct. You should balance both. But again, it should not be state-dominated but state-led. The other day someone was asking this question. I think, you know this Map My India, right? I'm slightly digressing from the original topic. I'll come back to this. But you should appreciate the context of this discussion. Otherwise, it's just a mere summary. There is one company called Map My India. Okay? It's a Desi version of Google Maps. They want to compete or maybe occupy some market share that is currently monopolized by Google Maps. Google Map works on which technology? GPS. GPS works on whose satellite system? India? No, right? So, it is not Indian. Now, what is Atmanirbharta? So, is it okay to promote Map My India? Who should promote it? Government. Okay. Government should promote Map My India. How? Okay. Now let's say I'll create one more company, Map Your India. I own this company. Should government advertise this also? Why is this hypocrisy? Why do you want to promote Map My India? Why not Map Your India? In fact, he is owning India. Here, I'm putting it in your hands. Ideally, this should get more promotion, right? By the name of it. What's the problem? Why is this hypocrisy? When your answer is yes, why not here? Uber, Videshi, Ola, Swadeshi. Should government promote Ola? Why not? Then why did this logic go for a toss in this case? How is this related to national security? No, I'll come back to the discussion, but it is linked to this discussion. I'm very curious to see your thought process. Is it refusing now? We do. Is it refusing now? How do you know Kargil during the time of Kargil they refused? Did Google refuse? I'm talking about a private company which is supposed to comply with national laws. What you're talking about is a military secret that is in the control of a sovereign government. Don't club both of them. Okay, your claim is that Google will deny data. You can download your own data now. You are the owner of your data. The problem is you not being denied data. The problem is they are also having your data. So, frame your argument correctly. Okay, fine. Now, let's say we will promote this Map My India as a alternative to Google Maps. This company is raking in all the profits. Who is advertising? Government of India. Where? On public platform where you have the biggest influencer in this country, our Prime Minister Modi, as the brand ambassador without a penny. Nobody is paying our Prime Minister. Who is getting the benefit? You? People of India? Who is getting it? Is it a public listed company? We don't, like, let's say we don't know. Are people getting dividends? Then why should the government promote? Okay, we have to promote Atmanirbharta, fine. What is the incentive for the government to promote? Okay, now let's say to solve this problem, let the government take the stake in this company. Do you think I will even dream of starting Map Your India? What is my incentive? There is a government player there. Do you think you will go against, let's say, Power Grid, which is a literal monopoly? Power Grid is a PSU which distributes electricity across this country. I want to build something like that. Only if I am foolish, I would start that. Then aren't you necessarily killing the market? So, how is this linked to Bretton Woods? You might be wondering. This is a classic case that IMF is not able to solve. What is the fundamental premise? Economy will drive politics. What is the confidence of that premise? Because the technological prowess of US is going to dictate the markets. That fundamental assumption is challenged. Am I assuming this? No. Look at IMF voting power. 17% of IMF vote share belongs to which country? How is that possible? Because of their contribution. Why were they able to contribute more? Now, in a situation like India, where you have a desi version of a company which is eating away into your market share, you are blocking immigration, you are putting trade tariffs. On what grounds do you have the credibility to say I am going to dictate global politics? And this is the essence of the article. They will not function as long as you do not accommodate my needs. Global agreements will work only when there is an incentive for both the sides. Global power is a zero-sum game. If you have power, the other one will automatically lose power. And because of this very nature, these institutions come into the picture to create a win-win scenario. US is willing to let go of some leverage in exchange for retaining its market leader spot. If everybody is innovating, who is going to consume? And market economy recognizes this principle pretty well. US, being a market-led economy, recognized this principle very well, and to control and leverage that situation, these Bretton Woods institutions were intentionally designed in that manner. Let me go back to the data and ask, how many times was IMF successful in preventing a crisis in reality? Are you saying that a country which was taking some benefit from IMF never went into crisis again? There was only one country, India. We have not actually taken any grants from IMF. It was more like a loan. But what about the Latin American, African, other Asian countries, our beloved neighbor? Pakistan has a paradox. On one hand, they want to take loans for militarization. On the other, they are also negotiating for bread pieces. They do not want import tariffs on their bread, which is a fair enough policy debate. But the dichotomy is something that is so startling. How is that you can talk about a bread piece and a missile on the same table? On the same negotiation table? Which is what baffles me all the time, whenever I look at that negotiation. And such is the nature of power. And in that kind of a world where every global institution is kind of exerting their influence, their proxy influence through the decisions they're taking, we are supposed to believe that these are neutral, but when the vote sharing is distorted in a multipolar world, the fundamental assumption is shaken. So developmental finance is now not going into those projects which are supposed to build national assets. From a very long time, whether we agree or not, all this finance has been conditional. And when you have that conditionality in financing, how will this institution regain that legitimacy? We are believing and accepting this finance, we as in whoever is taking that finance, accepting that finance only because there is no other alternative. Once that mask is removed, or that facade is revealed, global institutions which were hitherto considered neutral stopped gaining that legitimacy. And ironically, America has been instrumental in destabilizing that. They want to exit. Like under Trump, they have a very huge debt and they're trying to cut down bills everywhere they can, without realizing that it will have a long-term stability, long-term stability crisis. They want to move out of WHO, WTO, Paris Climate Deal, UNICEF, UNESCO, whatnot. In short, they do not want to spend a single penny that doesn't concern their national identity and their trade, because they're desperate to get out of that debt. So in this kind of a crisis, what's the legitimacy of these institutions? They will again gain legitimacy when this fundamental assumption and therefore governance is revamped. How is this article relevant? It is relevant in the context of GS2, IR, global institutions, and the need for change in global governance architecture. Clear? We're talking about the financial architecture. Are these two institutions the only representative of the global governance architecture in finance? No. You have other institutions also, but let's broadly talk about the macroeconomic fundamentals of balance of like the external sector, balance of payments, and developmental finance. Okay, these two important aspects in the institution should be factored in. Closing the loop of this example, you have to understand that nationalism doesn't mean you ignoring the basic funda of market. No Indian will buy a substandard Indian product just because of nationalist agenda. You have to compete with Google on your merit, not on nationalist agenda. Atmanirbharta doesn't mean encouraging an inferior product because it is of Indian origin. Atmanirbharta means raising to the level of global competence and catering not just to the Indian markets but also to the globe. Right. With this context, let's move to the second article. The whole problem of PLI, production linked incentive. Can you tell me what is PLI? Incentive given for manufacturing. Perfect. PLI, production linked incentive. Now let's say if the government is giving production linked incentive for manufacturing of let's say magnets, which are very important in extraction of the rare earth minerals. Do you think it will help Indian cause? You know what is this background, right? Like, okay, I'll explain the quick background for those who don't have it. India wants to achieve this net zero by 2070. And one of the main agenda or the strategy is decarbonization. What do you mean by decarbonization? Picking a technology in such a way that it is not polluting, that it is not releasing any greenhouse gases. Clear? So, one of the major contributor or the source of greenhouse gases has been the mobility sector. So, as a solution for this mobility problem through decarbonization agenda, we are moving away from fossil fuels to e-vehicles. And to make this happen, we need batteries. And these batteries are again possible when you have tech and two, raw material. This raw material is nothing but rare earth mineral oxides. Okay? Who controls this? Almost 70% of the global reserves are in China. Now, in a bid to make India move towards energy transition, the government of India decided that we will give production linked incentive to magnets that will extract rare earth. My question is, how is it solving the problem? Where are the rare earths? What will we do with the magnets? What do we do? Magnets are for extraction of this rare earth. What are we essentially doing? We are selling them to. So we are incentivizing, we are at loss and making a cheaper goods and selling it to the original raw material source and then importing the final product. Not only are we wasting money, we are also changing. See, we are changing from fossil fuels to e-vehicles because it is environment friendly. Let's relook at this scenario. Who are the sources from where you will get this fossil fuels? If not Saudi, someone in the Gulf, Russia, US, so many players are there. Who has control over rare earths? Only one nation. What if China is pissed off with India? We have to move back to bullock carts? Is this a risk diversification strategy? In a bid to be environmental friendly, it looks like we are trying to promote bullock carts instead of e-vehicles. The government realized that this is somehow not working, and they realized that maybe we have to go back to the table and see if we can attract that rare earths into this country and create some policy stability. Not only are we losing revenue by giving incentives for equipment like this, we are also damaging our strategic advantage. This is the backdrop. Now take a look at this article, what it is saying. What is China's complaint? China alleges that the three PLI subsidy schemes provide financial benefit subsidies to companies operating in India. For instance, one of the conditions is to get that there must be 50% domestic value addition. One of the salient features of the PLI scheme for ACC batteries is that 25% is there. They went to WTO. Okay? I'm talking about a separate thing. Here the issue is another. In one of the schemes related to this battery manufacturing, we made it mandatory for those companies to base their production in India, and 50% of the production, the value addition, should happen within our own country. And only then we will give subsidy. Within the framework of WTO, there is a clause which says that subsidies and other financial incentives should not be given in a way that will distort the market. And that is the complaint raised here. They have not bothered to do that when we were giving the subsidies for magnets. And rightly so, because it is advantageous to them. Why will they complain? So, what is it that we have to realize? You are supposed to design a policy with a clear-cut awareness of what we are competing with. The fundamental assumption with which we created that scheme for magnets is that we also have rare earths, but the quality of that rare earths is much inferior than China. So instead of aligning our efforts on our strength, what if we build a solid competence for e-vehicles? India is a very huge market. Yes, we will try to depend on China, but what if we can create or base our ecosystem on something that is not dependent on rare earths? This is what we have to look at. Do you think of any solution here? Hydrogen. We have to move towards hydrogen. But right now, what is the problem? It's very expensive. And also, the manufactured components, electrolyzers for hydrogen, are again China dependent. But we can create that manufacturing ecosystem in our country and scale it up. But for that, huge requirement of finance is there. So this is where energy transition should move towards. It is in this kind of scenario. Nuclear is again back in debate. Small modular reactors. What is the significance of small modular reactors? Unlike the gigantic reactors where the risk is amplified, small modular reactors will power smaller geographies, smaller target areas. For example, many of these AI companies, they are also investing in nuclear power because of this SMR. They will fit the data center with the small modular reactors as self-sustaining energy source. And that is the future, according to all the AI enthusiasts. Any other source of power will be unsustainable. And it's actually very attractive for a lot of people as well, like a lot of investors, because the risk associated with nuclear is greatly reduced when you put it in a smaller place. It's not as powerful as an atom bomb, like it's not a ticking time bomb. There are designed, ingrained safety mechanisms. So this is not just about an event where you are learning about the WTO and the complaint of China. You are also supposed to think of the larger picture. How do we move away? Don't stop here. How do we move away from this conundrum? You don't want to depend on Gulf and other oil producing nations. And therefore you are moving towards e-vehicles. Now instead of diversifying your risk, you are basing your entire risk in one player, which is not safe. Okay? So this is the takeaway. Finally, how do cyclones form and how are they measured? This is a in the context of the cyclones that are happening across the world, in the Caribbean, in like even in coastal Andhra, what are you supposed to do? This is a topic that is time and again brought back into discussion. How is a cyclone formed? Initial, what is the first step? Most basic requirement for cyclone formation. Warm, warm water, large surface, pressure difference. Then, then there is rising of air, vertical. Then there is, difference in bottom and top layers. And then there is Coriolis force. When all of this combined together and that is sustained, it will create a eye of the storm. When it reaches the surface, it will get dissipated. This is the basic funda that you will come across in classes, like the basic classes. Now, depending on how much moisture, how much latent heat is there, you will categorize the cyclone. In India, this is done by IMD. There is a naming convention. Why do we name the cyclones? Just to recognize where they get originated, so that we have a nomenclature, so that if we want to quantify for our policy requirements, like so and so cyclone caused so and so damage. Let's say, for example, now if you want to create a policy document saying that this is the approximate financial loss accrued due to this specific cyclone, it makes it easier for nomenclature. That's the reason we are naming it. Okay, so just go through this. It's again a basic funda that is taught in your classes. That's the reason I'm reminding you once again. Okay, that's it for the day. We'll look at the other evolving issues in the subsequent classes by combining them together.